Welcome to the Poverty Franchise Podcast. I've been trying to bounce around a few names for this. I'm probably going to call this the Poverty Index Roundup when I just start rambling about the sports and news that caught my attention this week. Lots of stuff happened. The KD Donovan Mitchell trade situations are still ongoing. There's no telling what's true, what's false, like the KD retire rumors, which I thought were probably false, but I did leave the disclaimer that the world is crazy. Were false, patently, so I can't really speculate on much other than asking for 5 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell if the Knicks actually do that, this is going to end about the same way the Carmelo trade did, where, yeah, you land a superstar, you take away all of your depth pieces, which, to be fair to the Knicks, depth pieces are not as good as they were when the Knicks traded for Carmelo. And that trade will always be stupider because Carmelo is going to be a free agent after that year anyway, and he wanted to go to New York. They could have waited a few months. They probably would have lost a depth piece or two. I have to look at that roster again to see exactly who would have been a salary casualty. But also poison. Dr. Pepper cherry today. Easily distracted. But they wouldn't have lost what they lost in the trade. And they're going to do that with the Jazz. And God rest Donovan Mitchell's soul in New York if he gets traded there. Roquan Smith has returned to practice. He's going to play out this year. I'm happy for that. And I hope the year goes well for him in Chicago. I really hope he doesn't get hurt or anything. I wish him the best wherever he goes. At least I didn't buy a jersey this time. And then Deshaun Watson's suspension got extended to 11 games, which means in order for the Browns to make the playoffs, if we're just talking a purely football sense, I don't think he should ever play again. But Jacoby Brissett's going to have to hold the fort. They're going to have to win. They're going to have to finish above 5. They're going to have to go 6-5 to have a chance at the playoffs, especially in that hell division that is the AFC North. That shit is hell on earth. To still have a chance at the wild card. And I will pull up the Browns' schedule now, but I understand why the NFL had to respond to the allegations of by the word I'm looking for is oh my god, you were a poli-sci major and you're forgetting the word for challenge. Appeal. Thank you, audience out there. Appeal the ruling. That the independent former federal judge came down with. Makes it look like they did something. But onto their schedule. The first 11 weeks, they got the Panthers, which Baker Mayfield did just win the starting job, because holy shit, it would have been terrible for the Panthers if he did not win the starting job. The first 3 games, I think the first 2 games are very winnable, even with Jacoby Brissett. Their defense is good. Their line still has issues until I see otherwise. They have good support pieces. They have good players in all the skill positions. Their defense is solid. They have a great pass rush. They have a good linebacking core. Their DBs are good. I think it's doable. They got the Panthers and Jets week 1 and 2. I think those are very winnable. The Panthers are in Carolina against Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield will be playing with a chip on his shoulder. I just think it's a new system with a shit coach. I don't think that even with Baker Mayfield's big dick energy, I don't think they go past that. Excuse me. The Jets are the Jets, which I'm pretty sure Zach Wilson will be out that week anyway, so it'll be Joe Flacco. Don't lose to Joe Flacco. The Steelers in Cleveland, I think that game is also winnable, but I think the poor line's really going to show up here unless it's fixed. That'll probably be the first loss. Probably going to beat the Falcons. They will probably lose to the Chargers. And then you have the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett will have a chip on his shoulder for this game. But, I mean, I think at this point, you might be 3-3. You might be 4-2 at that point. You got the Ravens in Baltimore. I think you're going to be 4-3 there. The Bengals, you're going to be neutral. I think you can beat the Dolphins. They'll put you at 5-4. But then you have your tough 2 games. You have to beat you either are going to have to find it in you to beat the Ravens in Baltimore or the Bengals at home, because I do not think you're beating the Bills in Buffalo. You don't have a chance in hell against that. And you don't have a chance in hell against Tom Brady. But then Deshaun comes back against the Texans, which is a great tune-up game for him to come back to from a football sense. Then to finish out the schedule, you got the Bengals again in Cincinnati, and then the Ravens at home is very winnable. I don't think the game against the Bengals at this point in time is very winnable in Cincinnati. You have the Saints at home, that's a very winnable game. Washington in Washington, that's a very winnable game. And the Steelers in Pittsburgh, again, rivalry that can go both ways. It just depends. I think it's interesting that I'm covering the Browns more than the Bears at this current stage, only because I think the Browns have one of the most interesting storylines in the NFL right now. But it's going to be real interesting, to say the least, of what happens with the Browns this year. I think they're one of the longest running storylines in the NFL. Is going to be the one that people focus on the most for obvious reasons, because there's off-field drama there. Moving on to the Prem, we're going to do a quick run-up. Well, first, before I pull up the Prem fixtures so I can look at all of them, because I haven't looked at I don't think I remember every fixture off the top of my head. I do want to talk about one game that did catch my eye gleefully was the Dortmund, not Freiburg, not Eindhoven. Oh my God, Eindhoven. They're not even in the fucking Bundesliga. Werder Bremen. The Werder Bremen collapsed. All-time goof. Sula might be cooked. It's one game, but he might be cooked. Well, all-time collapse. Big win by Bremen out there, but again, you can't drop points when you're up 2-0 and drop points in 6 minutes. It's just not how it should work. At all. It's not how it should work in the slightest. But the fixtures from this week: Arsenal comfortably beat Bournemouth 3-0. Southampton beat Leicester 2-1. Fulham beats Brentford 3-2. Everton and Nottingham played to a draw. Crystal Palace beats Aston Villa 3-1. Spurs gets out with a 1-0 win over Wolves. My Man City come back to rescue a point out of Newcastle, who were up 3-1. Great game. Brighton beat West Ham, who are struggling out the gates 2-0. Leeds with a big win. America abroad beat Chelsea 3-0. And then Man U get back on track in the best way possible. I said in the last episode they needed at least a point out of that to kind of get their season back on track. They got more than that. They got the win. And now they're over Liverpool in the table. Going to the table, Arsenal are the only perfect club left. They've played 3, they've won 3. Man City, Leeds, Tottenham, and Brighton Hove Albion are all up at 7. Newcastle, Fulham have 5 points each for 6th and 7th in the table, respectively. A lot of teams have 4: Brentford, Crystal Palace, Nottingham, Southampton, Chelsea. That gets us from 7 to 12. The teams with 3 points are Aston Villa, Man U, Bournemouth. Liverpool is the sole team with 2 points, sitting close to the relegation zone. To be fair, it's only after 3 games, but no wins. No one of the 5 teams in the Prem with no wins in the win column yet. And then Everton, Wolverhampton, and Leicester only have 1 point to their credit. And then the lowly West Ham, bottom of the table with 0 points. No win, no draws, no nothing. -5 goal difference. This is not good for them. That's a bad place to be. You're basically 3 games back from the top. And they're going to have to get some wins on the win column soon. They're going to have to get some points on the board, if you catch my drift. The fixture list for next week, looking at West Ham specifically, West Ham has Aston Villa. in at Villa. That's going to be tough. I will say that. My Man City has Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace has played every game hard this year so far. It's going to be at the Etihad. I hope Man City can get back on track, get a win there. Chelsea should bounce back in a big way and beat Leicester, who looks like they're going to be in for a relegation battle this year from what I've seen. Going to be there with Everton, I believe, as well. We're going to have to see. Really, after 6 or 7 weeks, the shit should normalize, and we should know who the fuck is doing what, because this happens at the beginning of every year. The tables are all just kind of wonky. It's just how it goes. Still not. And then, speaking of Man U, after they're a big 2-1 win. They did sign Casemiro, so in theory, they're actually getting better now. They did not play Harry Maguire. That's what happened. Good things happen. You don't play Harry Maguire. It's a wild. It is a wild thing to think about. When you don't play Harry Maguire, you're a better team. It's just fucking it's just crazy to think about, that it should not take a rocket scientist to do that. The pairing of Lisandro Martinez and Varane, that should be the pairing. If beyond injury, that should be the pairing for the rest of the year. Because Varane is a good all-around center back, and Martinez will go and win the ball with a hard style of play. And then you pair them with Luke Shaw out left. I think he's out left. Please, my knowledge may fail me. But and then adding Casemiro to this, I wouldn't want to be playing McTominay week in and week out either. So it's going to be interesting to see how this matchup plays out. Man U next week has, I believe, they have Southampton. I did mention that. I think they should be able, if they can get another win, they're back. They're back in it. They're not like fully back in it, but they can. They're not in the hellscape, and it'll be good for Ten Hag as well. But that's all that there really is to talk about in the Poverty Index. It's a shorter episode. Not as much happened. I just thought I wanted to cover some of the bigger things. Back to the NFL. Kyle Thibodeau does escape major injury from what looked like to be actually a legal block. It's just a shitty situation. If it was a reserve squad dude, no one would be talking about it. If it was a dude who was struggling to stay from the first round of cuts, no one would talk about it. So it is what it is on that. I'm glad he escaped injury because I'm really excited to see Thibodeau play. It's going to be one of the few reasons I look at Giants highlights. You think I'm watching a Giants game? He got me fucked up. Got me real fucked up. But also, Madden 23 sucks. I don't think y'all need to know that. I'm excited for football to be back. And hopefully, as always customary on the Poverty Franchise Podcast, Brad Brownell needs to be fired because that motherfucker will always catch strays, so help me God. Hope y'all have a great Monday night and Tuesday morning. It's been PJ with the Poverty Franchise Podcast on this, I guess now titled the Poverty Index Roundup. Goodbye and see you later.